Good afternoon and welcome to the latest issue of Print21, the weekly video news bulletin for the Australia and New Zealand print industries. This issue is sponsored by Bulletin, Australia's largest supplier of printable materials and press room consumables, and now supplying wide format equipment. The Albanese government has passed its third set of new workplace legislation in the past 14 months, with print businesses set to be impacted by many of the new changes. Employers and business groups, including the VMA, are strongly opposed to many of the changes, which they say will hinder business and add complexity and workload to their operations. Included in new laws just released, which will potentially impact print businesses and which are set to come into effect on 1st of July, or for small businesses, which is most of the print industry of course, on 1st of January next year, are further strengthening of the multi-employer bargaining laws that came into effect last year, as well as immediate access to the workplace for unions, the right to disconnect after hours for staff, easier conversion for casual to permanent employment, and the change to intractable bargaining in favour of employees under the right to disconnect, which will come into force on 1 January next year for small businesses. Employees have the right to ignore calls, emails and texts from print bosses without fear of consequences. It also extends to the right to ignore communications from third parties, such as customers, suppliers, couriers. Bosses, though, can include clauses in the contracts of senior staff to require them to be available outside of office hours. The new intractable bargaining law is highly contentious. Essentially, it says that the worker cannot be worse off in any way in new agreements. But critics, of whom there are many, say this means the usual give and take in negotiations will be useless. For instance, a boss can't say, okay, we'll give you a 5% pay increase, but we're going to drop the Printer's Day holiday. Under immediate access or right of entry to union staff, currently unions have to wait 24 hours to investigate potential breaches of the Fair Work Act. Under the new laws, if the union suspects either document shredding or underpayment of a union member, they will be able to gain immediate access. The Print Industry Employers Group, Visual Media Association, has labelled the new workplace laws introduced over the past 14 months, especially this latest lot, as messy and confusing. Charles Watson, General Manager, IR Policy and Governance at VMA, said the latest amendments to multi-employer bargaining further muddies an already unwelcome and complex process. He said the new law on intractable bargaining could result in parties not bargaining in good faith. Watson tagged the new right to disconnect law as unnecessary and said he'd be surprised if union officials had a genuine claim for immediate entry to a print business. Another of the new laws. VMA joins a host of business groups who see closing the loopholes legislation more as closing the flexibility that they say is necessary for Australia's high-wage economy to compete in the global marketplace. Stricken wide format supplies business Starleaton, which went into administration, had debts totaling $17.5 million, and with only $1.93 million in realisable assets, unsecured creditors are facing the prospect of minimal cents in the dollar on their outstanding invoices. Trade creditors owed $3.56 million, a family trust $6.56, company founders Peter and Lee Eaton owed $5.4 million plus interest. Stock value is $4.3 million, but that is almost all unavailable to creditors, thanks to purchase money security interest on it. Fixed assets are negligible. Debtor invoices factored by Octet Finance stand at $1.58 million, but Octet has $1.1 million claim on those. And some of those invoices are from businesses that are themselves in liquidation. The ultimate holding company, SDS Bidco, owes Starleaton $6.3 million, but that itself is in administration. Apart from the family, Octet and NAB are the major individual creditors. Behind them, in the queue and in front of any other secured creditors, and the ATO owed $623,000, and employees who owed $596,000. And that includes unpaid wages, super, long service leave and annual leave. Much of that super accepted will be paid by the taxpayer under the FEG scheme. The second creditors meeting for Starleaton is set for 15th of March, by which time the administrators from Cathro Partners hope to have sold the business. Starleaton had revenues around $20 million, operated from facilities in virtually every capital city in the country. That's it for this week's issue of Print21. Go to print21.com.au for all these stories in depth and more. Thanks to our sponsor Bulletin. This is Wayne Robinson, editor of Print21, signing off for another week.